All right, joining us now, he is the head coach at Northern Iowa, of course, coming off another conference championship and got a contract extension, which we'll talk about many topics with him. Always enjoy having him on the show. And I speak of head coach Ryan Jacobs. Coach, how you doing?
Doing well, Eric. Thanks for having me on again.
It's always great to get you on. And recently, what we've done is we've had you on during the week of when you all the big four Iowa schools get together to play fall ball, which is one of my favorite weeks of the fall to get the four of you together. What is that like as you'll get ready to go to Ames, Iowa, and you play each other there and catch up and obviously try to really test your team before it gets for real in the spring?
Yeah, I think a couple of factors for that. One, it's just an exciting event to have in the state. To get all the people, all the fans of softball excited one more time before the snow flies, get us all together. But second, it's one of those opportunities where I think a lot of us play. Some in-state junior colleges and things like that to fill out our fall schedule, and we don't get a ton of opportunities for other Division I competition. So it's kind of that last hurrah of the fall. Let's try to prepare yourself up to that moment and then kind of really get a good feel for what your team is and where you're at and what you need to do going into the off season.
What are you hoping when you play in these type of fall matchups? I'm sure a part of you is, where are we at this point? Where do we got to work? What do we got to work on before February? What are a couple things you're looking forward to finding out in this as you play these teams?
Well, I think one of the biggest keys is your freshmen and some of the kids that might not have played a lot last year, uh, just to get them in that competition. And it's hard to replicate for them, um, the speed and the pace of the game at the Division I level. So our freshmen to get that first taste of what it's actually like. And make them believers. I think that's the big thing. We try to do it in practice. We try to show them and tell them and put a time clock on them or whatever. But it's different when there's another uniform running around and trying to take advantage of you, where you get a little bit different anxiety level. And that's what we need them to feel. We need them to feel that and then know going into the off season that that's what I need to prepare for going into next spring.
I think it impresses me what you do in the fall too is you play these games, but you also try to put awareness and promote the program. You've done, you do the hit-a-thon, for example, and things. Just talk about that, because you're one of the few programs that just doesn't just play fall ball games. You're doing a lot of different things to help promote the program and help in general.
Yeah, in September, like it's probably the busiest month of the season for us, all together, all the way around. Obviously, the January, February, March, April, they're hectic, but they're travel and things like that. So we're at home, but we stay super busy with, like you said, the hit-a-thon, where all the schools are recruiting. So you're mixing in, campus visits every week. Um, Practicing as much as we possibly can outside and trying to create a really challenging environment for them as we start the year and try to figure out where we're at. But also trying to show our face at some of the fall events, going to as many football games as we can and showing ourselves as a team, volleyball matches. I think some of our players have gotten out to a soccer match as well. So trying to support those teams that are starting the year off for us as an athletic department and showing our faces out there too. And it just gets really busy. September's really busy, but it shuts off pretty quickly there in the second week of October, where we go from kind of spinning and chasing our tail and doing as much as we possibly can to, kind of twiddling our thumbs, really, not because we're not doing anything, but because we were doing so much in September.
We mentioned the four Iowa schools. Obviously, Coach Gillespie in Iowa. They're coming off winning the NIC. Jamie Pinkerton has done great at Iowa State. You could argue the last month of last season, they were one of the best teams in the country. The way they were playing, they were knocking teams off like Oklahoma State. Then you got Drake. Now you look at this year. Drake's got a new coach. It's going to be weird. No Coach Calvert around. Like, that's got to be a little strange for all of you guys not to have him around. That'll be unique.
Yeah, it'll be different. It'll be a change. And obviously, Coach Calvert and I we're good friends and have become good friends through competing against each other. And so not to have him around is going to be different. But I also know Coach Dial really well. Watched her from from afar and recruited some of her players and had a few on our roster. So I know what kind of a coach she's going to be. I think it's going to be a great addition for them. It'll be interesting to see how the kids respond at Drake, because she's going to go get them. It's going to be different. I know it's going to be a different system and a different personality, obviously leading the charge. So it'll be interesting to see how they do. But regardless, we know them so well. We know those kids. A lot of them are Iowa kids, so we know how they're going to compete, and we just got to be ready for a really good game anytime we face off with Drake. And I think all the teams in Iowa are doing fantastic. We're all doing our own thing. We're all competing at a high level. It's fun when we all get together, but it's always a competition.
It really is. And I know there's competition even off the field, right? Like it's a little competitive, right? With all you coaches, when beyond just coaching the softball games, even you're all friends, but you're also competitive.
Absolutely, we're always competing against each other. But I think the nice thing is it's very respectful, and I think all the coaches in the state, do things the right way. So it's not, it doesn't get dirty, I guess, like it is in some other places. And I think we all respect each other and respect what it takes to win. And we respect the game in the state, and we're excited about it.
Is Pinkerton picking up the tab for the food this year? Who's picking up the tab?
He should.
Okay, I just wanted to throw that out there, bring him up. All right, let's talk about your team. Let's first talk about last year. Another great season, 39 wins. You win the regular season title. You don't win the conference tournament. When you reflect on last season, what goes through your mind?
I just missed opportunities early in the season. Our schedule didn't set up great for getting an at-large bid, but it would have set up a lot better if we would have taken care of some games early in the season and some opportunities. We just didn't have as many opportunities to get that big signature win or to get a couple of really good wins. But we always talk about doing our business in the league, and we did that. We continued to do that, and we gave ourselves a shot. And keep telling everybody, it's really hard to get where we've gotten to in the last 3 or 4 years. It's really difficult to get there, and everybody looks at it and says, "Well, you haven't been able to get over the hump." You haven't. I know, but it's still hard to get there every single year. And one of these times it's going to happen. It's just going to be like a tipping point, just like it is with a lot of things in life, is that you work really hard, and once you finally get there, then it tips. And it's not that it gets easier, but you understand it a little bit better, and you can do it. And I think that's what it's done for us. Just our success in the league at the regular season is we understand what it takes and how we're gonna have to get there. And we've done it. So it's just one of those things. We got to get there. I talked to Coach Blaylock a lot about it. In her career, she said it took her forever to win that conference championship in the conference tournament. They won plenty of regular season titles, but it seems like, man, lately they've done a good job with it. Once it tipped for, the team and everybody around it, it wasn't that big of a deal anymore. So they can do it. They've been doing it. And I think it'll be kind of the same thing for us at some point.
Well, and of course, last year the league was a lot bigger with the new members, deeper as a result. So it's harder. It's a lot harder. What did you think of the league in its new kind of look, having gone through it now for a year?
Yeah, I think you look at just the coaches, and things have changed. Not only is it bigger, but there's different people that are driving now at the head of the table in some of those programs. And obviously that doesn't mean that anything's going to change, but that is a change, and how will it affect going forward? But I think the competitiveness of our league is great. I think it's going to even get better. I mean, some of those teams that this was their first year, now that was their first taste of it. It's kind of like a freshman. They, that first year, they don't really know what they're getting into until they've experienced it. And then their sophomore year, it's like, all right, I got this. Now I know how to game plan for this. I think a lot will be the same for those new teams in the league, being in it their second year.
Well, and I think Coach Sewell's team showed in the NCAA tournament how good the Valley can be. They pushed Utah to the limit. Utah ended up going to the World Series, and they nearly knocked off Utah. I know what, in talking to you and talking to coaches in the league, one of the goals is to get back to being a multi-bid league, like you were a couple years ago when you got in, and because this league certainly can be multi-bid. Where do you feel like you're at as far as getting back to a multi-bid league as a league? Do you feel you're close to that? You mentioned something earlier. You felt like if you maybe had taken care of some business, earlier in the season, you might have gotten in as an at-large, which would have helped the league be a multi-bid league. Is it as simple as that, or is it more than that?
No, I think it's harder and harder right now for us to get that at large bid. I think it's tough, and I don't mean tough in the fact that that we're not good enough. I think we are good enough, but just the accessibility to playing some of those games, it's difficult. I mean, some of us in our league have some budget restrictions, so it's hard to go get some of those bigger games to give you an opportunity. We're taking it on ourselves this year. Like, we've beefed up our schedule a little bit. We're going to go challenge ourselves a little bit more from that standpoint and give ourselves more opportunities. I think it's that as well. Like, yeah, we're going to challenge ourselves. Win or lose, it's going to make us better, but it also gives us more opportunities for that win or two that might help us get that at-large bid that will help the league if we're not in if we're not in the game at the end of the season in the conference championship and winning that thing. It'll give us a better shot than we've had in the last, at least last year.
With the success you've had, has that opened doors from a scheduling standpoint you didn't have before? Or is it made it harder because teams are afraid to play you because you might beat them?
Yeah, it's made it a little bit more difficult, but there's always those teams that'll take us. So, we're just having to go. It just limits the variety, I guess, that you can do. You can't just say, oh, well, let's go to this place. And there's sometimes it's changed the dynamic of a tournament when we actually commit to it and other teams then back out. But it's been harder to get teams to come into the Dome early in the year, which is kind of funny because we've been terrible in the Dome for the last 3 years.
Don't let the secret out, man. Unless you're trying to get people out there, then it's a good way to do it. I remember talking to a lot of the coaches in the league last year. That you all were kind of curious from how the conference schedule, how it would work, how the conference tournament, there was tweaks to it, and that you all would go year by year and, hey, discuss some things. Hey, do we need to tweak this? Or we have, where do you feel you're at as coaches with the league right now as far as the scheduling with the conference regular season and the conference tournament format? Is everybody pleased? Is there some things that are discussed and maybe you could tweak some things to make it better? Where are we with it now, having gone through that year?
I don't think there's anything we can do about the regular season. I think it is what it is from you only have so many weeks to pull it off. And so I think continuing to have that, you're not going to play two teams. I mean, that's just the way it's going to be. I think there's been some discussions though on trying to weight the scheduling so that we're making sure that, like us in Southern Illinois, like we got to play. I think that helps us both. It helps our league for us to not have a Southern Illinois, an Illinois State, a Murray State on the schedule. It hurts not only both teams, but the league as well if we're not playing those games. So trying to figure out a system in place to make sure that that's not happening, with the random generation of who plays and who doesn't. As far as the tournament goes, we're still in discussions on how we're going to try to attack that. If we're going to continue to have it be everybody gets in, or, try to make it to where it's some sort of a double elimination. I think, we're one of the last mid-major leagues to not have a double elimination. I mean, you look back, there's a lot of teams now that are double elimination. It just doesn't create that accessibility for everybody to get into the tournament, which I don't know what that would create for us. Would it make it more competitive during the regular season, or, once a team's mathematically out, do they just fold? I don't know. That's the questions that are being asked. And, I'm just, my mind has always been, those discussions make me scratch and itch because they make me uncomfortable, because I feel like the answer to all of it is just go win. Like, you want the answer to all of our problems. Just go out and win, and no matter what the scenario is, you'll get what you want. And so it's tough to sit there and critique it when, we've been right there at the end. And I don't want to ever be like the complaining person of, okay, let's change the rules because I can't win it.
No, but I would defend and say I always feel like the regular season champion should have an advantage in the conference tournament, whether it be hosting, getting buys, something to that extent. That would be what I would just say that for most of the leagues, not just, the Valley. I'm just using everybody. To me, make the regular season meaningful by rewarding the teams like some of the leagues do, where the team gets to host. Is that, a part of the conversation too, or things like that? That's what I would like to see personally from all conference tournaments. I know I'm not going to win that, but debate, but I think that's a couple of ways to do it because you've had a great season and this conference tournaments is a different animal, and especially if you're doing a single elimination. I mean, that's a crapshoot.
It really is, especially when you go from the grind of the regular season. I mean, it's hard to do that, and you got to have a deep team. You got to have a tough team that's going to, and you got to have some luck. I mean, there's always, the last 2 years we've done well in the league, but there's been a lot of times where, like, we've gotten lucky here and there, and it takes that. That's part of the equation for winning and winning consistently. Is it's not just because you're always better. There's some days that you just get lucky, and you know, when you're trying to think of who's going to represent us as a team at the end of the year, you want to try to eliminate as much of that as possible and get that best representation. But I feel like there's like 5 or 6 teams. It doesn't matter whoever's going to get there, still going to represent us well, no matter what. Just like Southern Illinois did this year. I mean, they showed everybody that, it wasn't the conference championship that came out of champion that came out of this league, and they still made some noise.
Absolutely, and I've always said it's always dramatic, and it's not a big gap between the top teams in that league. I mean, really, a play here or there could make the difference from that standpoint. Let's talk about this year's roster. Obviously, you're gonna get asked a lot about your pitching and all that. We'll get to that. I want to start with your offense, and for those that maybe haven't followed your team closely, who are the leaders offensively, not only from a production standpoint, but also from that leadership standpoint, whether it be a vocal leader, a leader by example? Give me some of the players that people want to get to remember, because you've had a lot of great, one of the reasons you've had success you've talked about is the great leadership that you've had. So let's talk about that first, starting with the offense.
Yeah, if you just look at, on paper, we always mess around with what's our lineup look like if we had to play our first game today. And I think you can go down our roster, our lineup, and just like point at the things that they bring to the table. And right now, our leadoff hitter would be Kylie Sanders, who's our shortstop, going to go into her 3rd year as starting shortstop. Started leading off for us last year. Just a great tone setter. She found a way to get on base. She came up with some big hits late in games. She can do a lot of things with the bat. She can just put the ball in play. She can drive a double. She can hit the ball out of the park. She can steal a base when we need her to. So a lot of activity in the leadoff spot. And then you go in the 2 spot with Alexis Papillo, who just had an unbelievable freshman year. First time that UNI's ever had a freshman All-American. And she really had a slow start to her freshman year. The first month of the season, she was still trying to figure out how to deal with some failure that has never happened before in her career. So once she figured how to navigate that and how to work through that, just unbelievable numbers offensively, power numbers, but just a scary hitter in the top of the order there. And then Madison Parks, who was it was her first time being first team all conference as a center fielder for us. Just came into the program, worked her way into the 9-hole, learned a lot from Sammy Bunch in Sammy's senior year. I mean, they talked all the time, and just learned how to be a good hitter. And she'll be in the 3-hole if we had to start today. Addison McElrath, who had a breakout year as a sophomore last year for us, started the season as a pinch hitter and just went off. I mean, unbelievable power numbers, runs created in the 5-hole for us last year, but she'll move up in the 4. And then Taylor Hogan, who's just been a consistent hitter for us for 4 years now. And a major player in our league. Then we'll have probably some new pieces in there, some kids that platooned last year. We'll see how that shakes out. But, I hesitate to put Darren Lamprecht, who's been in our 9-hole for 2 years, and move her up because that's the kind of hitter she is. But she's just done such an unbelievable job in the 9-hole for us that turns a lineup over and is a scary hitter down in the 9-hole because she can take you out of the ballpark. It'll probably be that 6, 7, 8 spot that's kind of up for grabs from a couple of freshmen as well as some returners that didn't play a lot last year that are going to hopefully take a hold of their opportunities and do some producing for us.
Right, you bring a lot of production back, as you mentioned, and you know how to develop players. I know you've talked about that. You take pride in that, developing players. Like Sammy Bunch didn't become an All-American overnight. And I remember, it's funny you bring up players like Sanders, and I remember them talking about them a couple years ago when Sammy Bunch, like, who's going to take over? You're like, well, we got some multiple pieces. We just got to be patient with them, and it's paying off. It's paid off over the last couple of years. So who are some of the new faces you're excited to see develop that help the program, not just this year, but beyond?
Great. Glad you asked because we've got a couple of fun ones. I think right now this fall, Paige Peterson has kind of popped out in my eyes as I think the thing that pops the most is that we always try to bring in these dual position players. And I think we've done a really good job of having a versatile outfielder that can play any outfield spot, or an infielder that can come in as a shortstop and then move to third base or move to second. That's been great. But to have a kid and we've tried it, that can come in and play in the outfield and in the infield. She's been a second baseman her whole life, but her high school coach does a great job of trying to keep his players versatile. And so at practice, like, the infielders are constantly having to go shag in the outfield during BP. And it's not just a shag situation. It's a go run down fly balls and make yourself a better athlete, which has really helped her out because this year I feel like, she's obviously in our top 4 or 5 in the outfield, but she's also, one of our better infielders. She's going to make Taylor Hogan better second baseman as a 5th-year senior, just because she's out there with high energy and making unbelievable plays. But she's also doing that with Maddie Parks in center field. So she's one that, I'm excited about. Keep an eye on her. We'll see where she falls into the mix this year. It might be completely different next year. Sakura Smith, utility infielder, but she's come in and really swung the bat well in all of our games that we've played this fall. I'm anxious to see how she does this weekend, coming up against the Big Four competition and some Division I pitching. But she's done a nice job against our pitchers in our scrimmages and whatnot. And that's the big question going into playing games in the fall is we have our pitchers face off with our hitters, and you're like, okay, are our hitters bad or are our pitchers good? I don't know. So far, it's just kind of we've got pretty good hitters, but our pitching's pretty good too. So now I want to see how they do against somebody else's good pitching at the Division I level. So she's another one to keep an eye on. Our freshman pitcher, Maddie McDermott, she's done a nice job. She's going to be one of those kids that she's going to get thrown into the fire this spring. So is she ready today? No. She's got some work to do, but she'll be one to keep an eye on in the spring and see how she develops over the off season. Addison Bruner's another freshman for us. She's been playing a lot of first base, and she's probably down the depth chart a little bit. And I think she understands that, but she's been working really hard and trying to really learn from our upperclassmen with Addie McElrath and Darren. They've done a good job of getting her up to speed as much as possible, but she swung the bat great in every game. I think her first at bat was a home run, and she's had a couple of other base hits. But once again, interesting to see how she does against some Division I pitchers this weekend. But new kids, and then a transfer player from Minnesota State, Ava Smithson, who's really swings a heavy bat. She really can thump it, and has done a nice job behind the plate and in the outfield for us.
And that's kind of the thing that's underrated about fall ball, right? Because you like to experiment and try players out in certain positions and see what they can do, right? That's part of it, and pays off for you during the season.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think kids want to know, where am I playing? And I think we've got 5 kids on the roster right now that show up to practice every day and say, "Where do you want me today, coach?" And it's, go to third base today, go to right field the next day, you're behind the plate today. And, just keeping that line of communication open, but keeping them flexible in their minds too, and not them being upset when they see third base and they want to play right field, something like that. They're being flexible as well. And that helps be able to see what we really, really intend to see when we're moving pieces like that.
Pitching wise, obviously last season you had a 1-2 punch with Samantha and of course Caitlin Packard. I mean, as long as I've known you, we've always talked about Packard, but Samantha was the big story last year, winning 23 games. Talk about her first. Went 170 innings pitched, 267 strikeouts, 167 average against, because she was unbelievable. Just talk about her development there. And obviously you had Packard. Now who steps into those roles there to help out in the pitching staff? You obviously just mentioned you like what you have in your pitching staff. So just talk about that side.
Yeah, I definitely like what we have. Sammy stepped up and did some tremendous things last year. I don't think I know she didn't intend to do what she did. Her intention was, I really want to get better. She's struggled. And that's the thing that people don't know is, she was here as a freshman, and she even says it now. She's like, I was not ready for college softball at that point. And she really wasn't ready her next year, but she learned and she grew. And I think trusting Coach Wright and coaching Monica coaching her up, she really believes in that. But her work ethic is unmatched. I mean, she is unbelievable. She'll go into the indoor facility with a bucket of balls and the 9-hole and just throw for hours. So she's got the work ethic that got her there, but there was definitely no intention of like saying, I want to be better than KP or anything like that. And then it worked out. We had 2 really good pitchers. I think going into this year, I feel the same way with Anna Wisnowski, who got a taste of it last year, who's been pitching with Sammy and KP for, 2 years now. I think she knows what it takes. She's willing to take on the challenge, and she looks really good this fall. So I'm excited to see what she'll do for us in the spring. And then we added Kara Myers from Kirkwood Community College, who, pitched them to the JUCO World Series last year, has done a nice job and competed really well against us in the fall, the last 2 falls. So we kind of knew what we were getting there. And then adding Maddie McDermott, those 4, I feel like there's really good combinations there and really good work ethic out of that crew right now.
As a coach, because you're one of the best at doing this, and that is thinking big picture with a particular player. Like you mentioned, Sam struggled her freshman year, wasn't ready. But you gave, she had time. She developed into what she's become. That's not easy as a coach, right? Because you're thinking about winning in that day. How do you balance that as a coach of, we got to win now, but I'm not going to give up or bail on this player, because this player, maybe she's struggling right now and learning the Division I level. I mean, these are 18, 19-year-olds, but this player is going to help us in the program down the road. How do you balance that as a coach?
I don't know if I have a specific answer for you on that one, Eric. I feel like it's just my personality. I feel like we take flyers on kids that are, maybe not there yet or have only one tool that fits the Division I, puzzle, but we see some other intangibles in them, and so we take a shot on them, and they end up being a first-team all-conference player for us by the end of their career. I guess I just have patience, and I don't feel like I'm in a position to tell somebody what they can and can't do. Like, I like them to experience it themselves, and most of the time, if you feel that they can't, like, if you tell them, you're crushing them. They're just not gonna continue to work. But when they figure it out themselves, and then they can switch their investment in maybe a different area. But if they learn themselves, it's similar to a pitcher that would come in, and we see them as being a pitcher, but they hit their whole life. I'm not going to say you can't hit anymore. Hey, sure. Come in, jump in the cage. We're going to work with you just like I would any other hitter. And then they're going to see how far they are away from everybody else. And most of the time they make a smart decision and say, I'm going to pitch more than I'm going to ever hit. So they make that choice themselves rather than telling them that. I think that's just in my nature. But I always have a soft spot for the kid who is struggling and continuing to work hard. And I think that's what our program's always been about is hard work and, finish through the line, never quit. And so if they have that mentality, we're going to have the same investment back with them.
Flexibility. It sounds like you were like, hey, you want to try this? We could try this. And then let the player find out for themselves what you might already know, but you're not going to force it on them. You're going to let them find out on their own. That's actually pretty smart in today's day and age because the players have to buy in, right, at the end of the day. And the easiest way to buy in is by letting them show right there. All right, let's see what you could do, and then they realize, oh, you're right. Maybe I'll go in this direction. That's kind of part of it, right? That's the way to show it instead of forcing them. Hey, we think we should do this, no matter what.
Yeah, it's something I feel like I've learned over time too, because when I was a younger coach, I feel like I needed to show what I was worth and show them what I knew, and I've learned over time that doesn't always that doesn't always equal success for either one of us. And so working together and making it a partnership, and they're in charge of their career, not me. And I'm just here to facilitate it, to help it, I'm the assistant coach to them. And what I expect out of my assistant coaches is to continuously suggest, make suggestions, and don't get pissed if we don't do it, but just keep making them. Like, don't stop. Don't get frustrated if I don't take them. And I feel like that's our mentality with our players is, okay, I see you're struggling. Here's my suggestion. You don't like that? Okay, how about this? What about this? And let them be their own coach. And at the end of the day, they're the ones that are going to benefit from it. But I always tell them, my goal is for you to not need me. If we can figure out a way for you to not need me, then you're perfectly fine.
That's pretty good. Pretty good. A couple quick things before we let you go. Defensively, I know you're still always in the fall. Coaches are always a work in progress at defense. How do you feel about your defense, and the potential it has?
Well, I feel like, last year with the pitching that we had a really good defense. We had a great defensive year. We were right where we always want to be from a goal standpoint from a defense. But I think a lot of that had to do, we had two really good pitchers that struck a lot of people out. So it limited our opportunities. That's going to change this year. So we've got to be better. We can't just sit here and say we're a good defense because of what we did last year. We have to go into it with the assumption that we're going to get shots hit at us all day long. And not because that's what we think we're going to get out of our pitchers, but we don't know what we're going to get. We don't know how people are going to hit. Some, three of them haven't pitched a whole lot in the Division I game. Obviously, we know what we're going to get out of Sammy, but people are going to be gunning for her, and people are going to be attacking her differently. So we can't assume that it's going to be the same that it always has been. So we need to knuckle down and get better. But that's one of my favorite parts of the game. I know a lot of people think it's offense, but defending and being versatile and being athletic, I think that really shows on the defensive side of the ball. And I feel like you can really help a kid feel how athletic they really are on the defensive side of the ball.
I know that was your favorite side. Where did that come from? That joy of the defensive side.
I don't know. I've just always been more of a defensive minded person growing up playing baseball. I think that's probably because I didn't have anybody to play ball with. So you couldn't pitch to each other. So I had the garage, or I had a cinder block that I threw the ball against. And so I was always being a fielder or a pitcher. So I don't know. It's just been fun. And then, when I got to college, I was a catcher. So I learned a completely new position. So that helped me fall in love a little bit with defense. But then being around Coach Heller, my first year as an assistant coach, watching him teach infield was just like mind-boggling to me. It was just so interesting. It was all new. So it was, when it's new to you, then you dig in a little bit. So digging into that was something that I really enjoyed. So, and then also having him as a resource, I am always asking him and talking to him, and he's always wanting to be on the edge of, the newest thing. So that's helped. And that's always created kind of my love for trying to find new things as well.
And then lastly, you got another contract extension over the offseason, a couple more years added to the deal. You've talked about how happy you are at UNI there. Just talk about the commitment the school has for the program for you and you vice versa.
Yeah, no, it's a great place, and I even talk to our recruits all the time about it's the people that make this university great, and the people that you get to go to work with every day. We have our challenges, and everybody else has their challenges as well. They're just not the same as they are here, and we embrace them. We know what we're going to expect every day, and we go to work and enjoy the people that we're around. And plus, this community here in Cedar Falls is great. My kids love it, my wife loves it, and couldn't be happier about where we're at. And I love the challenges that we do have. I can roll up my sleeves every day and say, I know what I'm going to be challenged with today, and here we go.
Well, I know they're very fortunate to have you, Coach. Congrats on that, and thanks for taking the time to talk to us. You've talked to us for over the years here. Look forward to seeing you obviously play not only this week in the fall, but before you know it, get to February and start play on the field. Good luck the rest of the fall, and thanks for doing this. We'll be in touch, and thanks for always coming on the show.
No, always. Thanks for the invitation, always, and I always enjoy it. It's a great conversation. I appreciate your knowledge of what's going on, and you always compliment me, which is kind of shocking because you just know so much about what's going on here, and I appreciate that. And
Hey, you
says a lot about.
deserve it. Hey, you deserve it. You've earned it. You've gotten, with the success you've had there. I mean, you've got a lot of peers that respect you. Your name always gets popped up. So trust me, it's well deserved and earned what you've accomplished there and the accolades.
It's always nice to hear. I appreciate that.
All right, Coach. That's Ryan Jacobs, Northern Iowa head coach.